1600 hours, calling the April 21st, 2022 meeting of the Wolfeboro Police Commission to order. And I invite everybody to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And before we begin, we'll introduce everybody, to those here in the audience and those that will be watching the video portion of this. We have Chief Rondo, Captain Libby, Commissioner Bob O'Brien, and Commissioner Steve Wood. Commissioner Sean Coop will be with us shortly. He got caught up in the state of Maine, so he's making a beeline here. He should be here by 4:30. And our Executive Secretary, Sherry Moore. At this time, we'll entertain a motion to, for the consideration of minutes for the March 17th meeting.
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Okay. I have a motion made to accept the minutes as written, seconded by myself, and we'll take a vote.
Aye.
And I also. Okay. At this point, Chief, if you'd like to proceed with our monthlies, or your monthlies, I'm sorry, your monthly report.
I do, sir, and I will say a couple of things administratively. We definitely have a very packed agenda, specifically for non-public. So I do have, and the captain has, items under personnel that need to be briefed.
Okay.
I do have items also under personnel that may reflect on personal reputation along with litigation, and I have to brief, specifically I must brief the commission on 2 internal affairs investigations that have been completed.
Okay.
So with that, having said that, I will move into the first slide on the slide deck, Captain, please. So this will be incidents year-to-date 2022. This is showing an increase from 36%, or correction, 36 to 45%, so it's a 25% increase. And this is typical for about this time of year. You gentlemen do have the 58 listed offenses. So those numbers are about accurate for this time of year, and you know, per month, that's about what we see. Arrests year to date showing a 10.52% increase from 19 to 21. Again, consistent with what we normally see, and as we start getting into some of this, these numbers will keep increasing. Again, I've said before and I'll say again, on average, you want to look at about 30 arrests. It would average out to 30 arrests for the entire year, so you'll see that play out a little bit later. You gentlemen do have the arrest status report in your packet. If you want to drill down on a particular arrest, you can do that. Collisions year to date, we've seen a 35% reduction from 20 in February to 13 in March. It's still a little high. We really want to see numbers that are in the single digits. It's definitely doable. We've done it before. You do have the exact location and number of accidents per road on each of the town roads that you see in your backup data. And again, there's no mystery here. You know, we're looking at Beach Pond Road, Center Street. We do have one on Lang Pond Road, interestingly enough, and one on Middleton Road. And then, of course, the big winner. It's a toss-up this this past month between, of course, Center Street and South Main Street with 4 each. So there you have it. All what I call all the normal, all the usual suspects. Traffic stops year to date. We have an increase in March of 9.43% from 212 traffic stops to 232. Again, very typical for what we see. 11 tickets were handed out. That's a 4.75% chance of getting a ticket. And that reflects our education-minded approach to tickets. So we're not even giving out a 10%. It's not even a 10% ratio. It's lower than that typically. And again, it reflects our education-minded approach. You gentlemen do have the drawdown data if you want to see where the stops were and what they were for, and then also the amount of money that was raised by individual tickets and where those were. And so the state was able to get from us $1,165 in fines that were meted out by the officers in traffic violations. Again, we don't get any of that money, goes right to the state. Personnel analysis report. It's a one-page slide. There you have it right up there, and you'll see basically our activity by officer.
Can I mention something for that?
Yeah.
Something to point out on this, how I look at for operational purposes for you guys. If you look at the assist on arrest, I think is a key point there. As you see, there's 42 assists, which means there was 2 officers
Right.
with 68 of those arrests. So if you think
That's a
about
lot.
it, we typically only have 2 to 3 officers, depending on the day, out on the out on patrol. And 42 of those arrests took 2 officers, which could have been 15 to a half hour to an hour. So that's something to look at.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, the captain brings up a really good point. Your garden variety arrest from start to finish is usually about a 2.5 hour process. And if you're talking about a DWI, that's always a little bit more. That's always going to be a little bit longer because there's just much more paperwork and everything else involved in a DWI arrest. But yeah, that's a lot of time. That's an astute observation, Captain. Thank you.
I, in your memo this morning about activity with a particular officer, I'm looking at these numbers going, wow,
It's impressive.
very impressive, very impressive.
Yeah, and the only thing, again, I caution, not just the public, but also the commission as well, just remember in the back of your mind that some officers, not quite yet, Captain.
Yeah, I know.
Some officers, unfortunately, are on, stuck on the midnight, and I just want to say something about that shift, and that's what I call the most dangerous shift. And I'm going to emphasize this again. It is the most dangerous shift, and it's not the busiest shift. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not trying to confuse it with activity. It's the most dangerous shift, and the reason why it's the most dangerous shift is because there are precious few assets on at night to provide backup, especially past the hours of midnight. So if anybody's paying any attention, and I saw the union leader a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, you see this big front page article about the state police down 61 troopers for the state. Okay, 61. Troop E is really now shuttering its doors somewhere around 11:30 p.m. Okay, or 23:30 hours. They're shuttering its doors. Think about that. Okay, Troop E is closed. The sheriff's department is shuttering its doors at 2300 hours. It's closed. All right, Ospey no longer has a midnight shift. There's no officer on north of us. Alton may or may not, depending on their personnel status. Wakefield may or may not, depending on their personnel status, have an officer on duty. We are at, traditionally, the Wolfeboro Police Department from the early 80s has been really the shining light in the sea, so to speak. We've been, the one agency that has 24-hour dispatch, 24-hour police officer on duty. And that's the reason that shift is very dangerous, because if a critical incident occurs, backup could be as far away as the Alton-Guilford town line, or it could be on the Maine border. Okay, and that's a very long time if you're fighting for your life. And ask, and if you want to know what that's like, if anyone has any questions, if that, like, find Sergeant Strock and ask him. When he was on Bronze Ridge Road fighting for his life, what that's like. And he'll be happy to share his experience with you. So these are conversations that we definitely have to have. We have to have more of. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but we really got to start keying up discussions with our other partner community, or our partner boards and committees, like the Budget Committee, like the Board of Selectmen, because this situation does have to get addressed. It's got to get addressed sooner rather than later. But again, that is the most dangerous shift. So on the midnight shift, yeah, you're not seeing a lot of activity, but it's a very important and needed shift, because if you're gonna interrupt a burglary or a robbery, it's typically gonna be on that shift. If you're trying to interdict catalytic converter thefts and automotive theft, it's gonna be on that shift. That's when it's gonna happen. It's gonna be on the midnight shift. All right, let me move on to monthly reports.
Chief,
for-
in recent
Sure.
years, we've had 4 gun incidents. The double
Yes.
homicide occurred late at night, correct?
That's correct.
The attempted homicide,
3 in the morning.
3 in the morning.
That was times 3. That wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was attempted homicide on 3 people.
And actually, and what time was the one that occurred off of Key Waden?
That was your call.
Yeah, you
That
took
was
that.
at night.
Yeah, that was
Later
at night. I just
Not
don't know when.
midnight, but later night.
Okay,
Yeah, we
So
had
at
to
least 3 out
search
of
the
4
woods for a
gun-involved
wounded
incidents, yeah.
suspect
yep,
who got away from his assailant.
yep.
So, yeah, these things, bad things do happen. I mean, I hate to say it like that. You know, Wolfeboro is a very safe place, don't get me wrong. Yes, it is. But we do have bad things that happen, and we need resources to deal with them. Let me move on to the detective's report. For the month of March 2022, Detective Emerson investigated 6 new cases and arrests. Detective Emerson was assigned a sexual assault case involving a minor, an assault case which was the result of a domestic altercation, and a fraud case, along with an harassment case. Detective Emerson was also involved with 2 motor vehicle stops that resulted in arrests, one on a warrant and the other plain view for possession of drugs. In addition to all this, Detective Emerson is currently still investigating the 4 ICAC cases that he was assigned by the ICAC task force. These cases are extremely lengthy and require a lot more time and are quite methodical. Also this month, Detective Emerson lent his expertise to officers in a search warrant execution of a vehicle suspected of transporting drugs. Drugs were indeed found. Lastly, Detective Emerson conducted numerous interviews of suspected witnesses for multiple cases that he's currently investigating. Arrest warrants for some of these cases are presently being drafted. Cases signed and investigated include 1 sexual assault, 1 domestic assault, 1 fraud, 1 harassment, 1 arrest on warrant, and 1 arrest for possession of drugs. Percentage of cases closed this month is 46%. Percentage of cases closed by arrest during the month is 61%. Percentage of entire case closed to date, 67%. That's very good. You gentlemen have the investigator's monthly worksheet. It's a single document, looks like that. Moving on to school resource officer report. We're slowly getting toward the end of school. I know my wife, who's a school nurse over in Tuftonboro, is looking forward to the upcoming school break. She reminds me all the time. So March was the 7th month of school for SRO Divine, with 18 full days of school. During that time, SRO Divine responded to several incidents in a high school and middle school. Officer Divine wrote 1 arrest report and 11 incident reports. She also participated in meetings regarding the Kingswood Next Steps team. Incidentally, SRO Divine participated in the Kingswood High School, New Hampshire State Police, and New Hampshire National Guard fitness testing for the Guardians of the Granite State. This is a joint effort by the New Hampshire State Police, local police, and New Hampshire National Guard to host a high school fitness program. The students participate and compete to win cash prizes issued through the New Hampshire State Police and New Hampshire National Guard, and may open the doors for future employment opportunities for young, physically fit, and competitive students. Additionally, this past month, SRO Divine investigated 4 physical altercations at the middle school and high school with multiple students who are in the process of diversion with the White Mountain Restorative Justice Program. 2 students are currently in the process of diversion regarding separate incidents relating to sexting, bringing a weapon to school, and criminal mischief. SRO Divine took the reports from students regarding prior sexual assaults, 2 of which appear to have happened in other jurisdictions. Those reports were then forwarded to the responsible investigating agencies outside of our town. Lastly, a motor vehicle crash was reported on campus during school hours, which SRO Divine investigated. 1 student was cited for possession of a vape pen in his possession. This was his 2nd offense. So a couple of things I just want to highlight here. You see that this complex, this compound campus is very busy, right? That's indicative of this report. That's number 1. Number 2, that she is, she is almost like a detective in that regard, where she's doing investigations on very serious matters and forwarding them to other jurisdictions is very, very important. The other thing I want to highlight is the fact that the restorative justice program and our emphasis on not wanting to tie up the courts with matters that we think are basically school disciplinary issues is really starting to come to fruition, and we're getting to our backlog of juvenile cases and putting more emphasis on diversion type programs and keeping the kids out of the court system, or at least until second, third, or fourth offenses occur. You gentlemen do have the SRO worksheet if you want to take a look at.
Can I mention something? If you go back to the slide of the personnel page, you'll notice that she has 28 cases, which is pretty much leading everybody in the department. So it just shows you how busy the school is up there, because most of those cases, I'm not saying every single one, because she does take other shifts outside of that for overtime. Majority of those are coming from that school.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we have a packed agenda tonight, I'm going to just brief the chief's items, Mr. Chairman, by exception. I'll hit the highlights. If any of the commissioners have anything they want to follow up with me on, they can do so by phone or email or at any other point in time. I'm happy to answer their questions. So under general budget items, there will be an end of quarter budget review next month for the first quarter of FY22. Tom, we would definitely want you there for that. Presently, and at the time of the writing of this memo, 5 April 2022, we seem to be doing well at approximately a little better than 3% underspent. Actually, 3.012%, or $74,841.21 combined for all three budgets, police, dispatch, and animal control. Fuel costs are still a major concern, and we have instituted a 5-tier plan to constrain fuel costs. Presently, we are in the first tier of that constraint plan. The tiers move from least to most restrictive depending on our fuel consumption rate each month. As well can be imagined, they do have an impact on our policing operations in terms of visibility and enforcement operations. Personnel, as you are aware, Officer Joe Oswald has finished his time at the Wolfeboro PD and is now with the Wakefield PD, and we wish him the best of luck. Officer Ben Church is expected to leave on or about 5 May 2022 to go to the New Hampshire State Police, and we wish him the very best. We have 2 candidates in mind for our open positions. Lastly, Officer Josh Peasley has been accepted onto the Belknap County SWAT team. This allows us to have a SWAT team called into Wolfeboro should we need their services for a standoff or active shooter situation. Remember, we have 2 high schools in Wolfeboro. This gives us additional resources for these critical incidents should they arise. We're also examining the benefits of joining the Belknap County Technical Crash Reconstruction Team. This team will assist us when needed with technical crash reconstruction expertise, and the team brings with it much needed equipment not readily available or present in the town of Wolfeboro. By the way, there's no essential cost, there's essentially no cost to the Belknap County reconstruction effort, and the cost is minimal for entrance onto the SWAT team. I think what do we have to pay for that, Captain?
It was just equipment.
Yeah, so it's very good.
That was gonna be my, my question was,
Yeah.
how much is that costing us to do that? Because typically when you go out of county for something, there's always a cost.
Yeah, it's very similar to what the fire department has in its mutual aid agreements.
Right.
So that it is a very similar thing. But again, the reason we did it is we're concerned about these types of incidents. We're trying to stay one step ahead of the power curve, so to speak, and we're trying to build in some resources that we can bring very quickly in case of a crisis. And with shortages in policing, I'm very concerned about being able to respond quickly and effectively to these types of crises. Of course, you have to get at these types of critical incidents have to be dealt with very quickly, because time is literally of the essence. So, and that's what all of the after-action reviews from like the Columbine situations and the other situations, the other active shooter situations that have occurred around the country, the faster you can interdict this, the safer the community remains. And so it's to that end. And, you know, fortunately, the town has somebody like me thinking about these things and saying, okay, what can we do to mitigate these threats? And this is mitigation of this threat. So, operations and criminal investigations, prosecutions. In terms of police investigations, prosecutions, and operations, the month of March was active. Our prosecutor continued to work through the extraordinary caseload created by the courts in terms of the response to COVID-19 pandemic. I'm afraid this will continue for quite some time. I forecast even into 2023. The month of March saw 15 defendants respond to 18 charges. Of those, 14 pled or were found guilty at trial. 3 charges were placed on file pending good behavior, restitution, classes, or counseling as part of their agreement, and 1 charge was no pros, means withdrawn. The conviction rate for this past month is 100%, or near 100%, 99.82%, with $5,354 in fines, restitution, penalties meted out. So I'm going to skip now to training. Staff Sergeant Maloney attended and completed accreditation training. Again, we're looking forward to that, staying one step before the power curve, getting Staff Sergeant Maloney to essentially be the accreditation manager. At this point, he finished his exam with a 90%. Staff Sergeant Strock, we sent him to FBI leads class. And this is a Supervisor Leadership Institute. It's a 4.5-day program built especially for first-line supervisors and middle managers with the goal of enhancing their leadership competencies. Officers will be engaged in personality diagnostics, leadership case studies, mentoring, developing your people, performance management, risk management, and credibility. This institute is a student-centered and rich and facilitated dialogue and group work, and again, it's built and run by the FBI, dare I say, the world's leading law enforcement organization. And I'm not saying that just simply because I'm an FBI Academy graduate. Yeah, okay, come on, that was funny.
We knew that.
Staff Sergeant and Chief Rondo, Staff Sergeant Maloney and Chief Rondo taught at the Academy, and we taught collision investigation. Sergeant Strock also attended K-9 training. Officer Peasley was accepted onto the Belknap County SWAT team, and he passed all his training with flying colors. Shot very well, by the way. And training is Thursdays, twice a month for him. It consists of, his testing consists of an overboard PT test and acceptance by team members. And gentlemen, subject to your questions, that was the chief's items by exception, meaning the items that I thought were most important. Mr. Chairman, I'm now going to turn it over to you.
Do you have any questions?
No, the only thing I was curious about is, in the case of the SWAT team, was there a necessity to purchase a piece for him? Is that specific for him? Or did they provide it?
He was issued one.
Okay.
Yes, it is a specific firearm, so he had to qualify with that. First of all, he had to shoot prior to being accepted onto the team, and then he had to qualify with that firearm. And then what we will do for him is he will continue to qualify with our firearm, our issued firearm, and then also I have given him permission to carry that firearm so he develops that muscle memory. Because not only with the firearm, but he was issued a different type of holster. So we want that muscle memory to be built into everything that he does. So I have authorized that firearm to be used, but he's going to qualify with that firearm and our department issued firearm when he does his semi-annual qualifications and quarterly trainings.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
So our next meeting date will be here in the Bradley Room on May 19th at 4 p.m. That's the third Thursday of May. And at this time, I'll look to our rep from the Board of Selectmen, Luke Freudenberg, to see if he has anything that he'd like to share with the community or with the Police Commission.
I don't think so, not today.
Okay? And Tom Bell, our liaison from the Budget Committee.
Other than the announcement of a meeting next Wednesday that I've informed PD about, nothing really to report. We'll see what happens
Okay.
at the meeting.
Very good, thank
Oh,
you,
wait, I did
sir.
have one thing.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned it last night. I mean, as we all know, Steve Durgan passed. And
That was terrible.
yeah,
That was very terrible.
And there's a celebration of life at Goodhue and Hawkins this Saturday from 3 to 5.
Okay.
And was he a part-time police officer?
Yes, he
in
was.
Wolfeboro?
Yep.
He was
Way back.
a very active member of the Wolfeboro Police Department many years ago, long before I think,
Yep.
heard of Wolfeboro. Yeah, many years ago.
He was my 7th grade geography teacher and my junior high football coach. Great man, though. Good guy. Very well
Mr.
respected.
Chairman, I do have one alibi, if I may.
One second. I just want to catch up Commissioner Coop, 1 second. Yeah, we need to sign, there's 3 copies of each one of those, so you need to sign. Okay. Thanks. And I think you're right, the top is your stipend probably. Thanks. Okay. All right.
Yes, a few weeks ago, and I had this in my packet, and it is something I do want to mention, because I think, it's very important, and it's very important for me to bring this before the commission. As well, a few weeks ago, the captain attended a technical review committee meeting, actually on Wednesday, April 6, 2022. As you know, he's a member of that review board. And during that meeting, they heard plans, or he heard plans, as part of that meeting, to put in a 90-unit workforce housing project that I think is going to go off of 109A area over
Right.
by
It's not a workforce housing, so
Yeah.
that was,
a misnomer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so what was the captain?
so basically it's a 90-unit apartment building up on Pine Hill Road, 2 buildings.
Yeah.
That will hold 90, and then it's another area down the street across from Beach Pond Road that will be another 90-unit housing
Modulars,
modules.
yeah.
So
That's a very expansive project.
it is.
And it has been out on social media at this point. It's even the plot plan and the layouts of the development.
It is, and I'm just doing the deep dive here. And that's great that we have, more housing going into Wolfeboro. I mean, we know we need it. We know we need it, and we certainly need, I prefer the term young professional housing, but whether you call it workforce housing, it's all the same thing. But the point I'm trying to get at is that, and that's great that we have these buildings going in, but when we look around Wolfeboro, between what is going in right now and what's already under construction, so if we want to take a look at this, so that we can talk about the Harriman Hill, we can talk about the Bay Street project, that development on Bay Street.
Yeah. Oh, Taylor Community.
Taylor Community, thank you.
Yeah.
Look at what's going on in my community, where they're gonna be essentially repairing the road in May, and that property's been bought or transferred to the builder, and they're gonna be putting in 25 homes, high-end homes back there. You've got the area out by Commissioner
Tully
O'Brien,
Farms.
the old Boston Sand and Gravel development, and they're already building in there.
Yep.
And then what's planned coming down the pike. We're looking at a lot of building going on between now and we'll call it the next 5 years. Now that's great, that's all great, and that's all on top of what's already being let by our town planning office for new construction of single-family homes and so forth and so on. The point I'm getting at is very quickly, and if you look at these numbers, if you start doing the math and you figure out the average American family is mom and dad and 2.5 kids, and you do the math in here, you're quickly looking at a number which is in excess of 1,000 people.
Between the two.
And and again, I'm just spitballing here. I'm just throwing this out. That and if you look at the U.S. Census, which is up, right, from in 2022 or 2020, right, it was up from 2010 by at least a couple hundred, if not 300 or 400. We're looking at adding about 1/6 of the population to the town of Wolfeboro in, say, about 3 to 5 years, right? You're gonna add well over 1,000 people. If we look at the population of the town of Wolfeboro, saying about 6,200, 6,400, all right, and we're gonna add 1,000 people, that's a lot. And these are the things that I think our policymakers really need to discuss, and they need to start kicking this around, because these have implications. And, you know, we're talking about implications for fire rescue, we're talking about implications for the police department, we're talking about implications for EMS. Certainly, we're talking about implications for water and sewer, right? All of these things, they have implications across the breadth of town government and in this, you know, the service and distribution of municipal services. So I think it's a worthy discussion for everybody to start having and start letting these conversations bubble up. And the reason I say that is because invariably it's gonna put stress on the already existing infrastructure, unless that infrastructure grows. And that's it,
Okay.
that's it.
I
I'm
just
parking
have-
it there.
No.
I just have to say, I'm glad to hear that, because anticipation of tomorrow's demands for service, we have to keep an eye on so we can maintain
That's
the
exactly-
proper level of administration.
That's exactly where I'm going
Yeah.
with this. That's exactly where I'm going with this. I'm just gonna park it there, and you know, it has implications for the school district, clearly.
Yes.
Clearly.
Absolutely. Okay, do we have any comments or questions or anything from the general public? Nothing at all? Okay. Then at this point, I will entertain a motion to enter into non-public session under RSA 91-A for internal investigative matters, reputational matters, and pending litigation.
I move first that we terminate our current open meeting, and then we move into a private, or, you know,
Well, we'll
non-public.
We'll stay in public session. We won't terminate, we'll just go into non-public. We'll come back and
Oh,
terminate
okay,
public
well, I
after
thought it
that.
was,
Yeah,
all right.
that's just normal.
Yeah, all right.
So do we have a movement on the motion for to go into non-public as
Yeah,
described?
I second it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You-
Okay,
Bob
yeah,
moved
yeah.
it, you seconded. Roll call, moved by Commissioner
I-
O'Brien,
yes.
seconded by Commissioner Coop. Roll call vote, Commissioner O'Brien,
Yes.
Commissioner Wood is a yes, and Commissioner Coop.
Yes.
And we stand in recess for non-public session.